Hi, everyone, and welcome to Resource Revolution. I'm your host, Christine Robinson, and on this podcast, we will discuss the real-life experiences of people in and around the world of resource management. Today, we're joined by Laura O'Leary, Global Head of Resource Management at APCO Worldwide and Managing Director of Trilligent, APCO's sister company. Laura's career shows just how far a foundation in resource management can really take you. She's held roles at 3 of the 4 Big Four and other award-winning international consulting firms, developing resource management capabilities across multiple industries. Now, she operates at the intersection of people, strategy, and operations, as well as innovation. In this episode, we'll dive into how she made it happen, what she's learned over the last 20 years, and how resource management can shape not just teams, but entire careers and organizations. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I'm so excited for this conversation. We met virtually, I guess, a couple of weeks ago. I found you.
You did.
And I was like, one of these things is kind of like the other. Let's be best friends.
It was nice. It was a meeting of minds.
Yes, no, it was good. So I'm so excited that you're here. I've got a couple of questions. I'm going to give you questions. You're going to give me answers, and we can get started. So, Laura, you've just come from Elevate. We were surrounded by resource management leaders and change makers. Was there a conversation, individual, or idea that really stood out to you?
Well, first and foremost, what a great day. Met loads of lovely people, including yourself.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to lots of different conferences over the last few years. And this one stands out to me because, well, usually there's lots of talking about problems and not much about what can we do about the problems. So what I loved about yesterday's conference was the focus was all about the solution, which isn't something you see very often. But I think that encapsulates the resource manager's mindset, which is we are problem solvers by nature. So that was the thing I loved about it. That's actually quite a broad observation. I'm not going to, pull out any specific comments about anything yesterday.
Because they were all good.
They're all so good. There's too many to name.
I will say the speakers were awesome. The energy in the room was super, super contagious. I mean, I'm an energetic person to begin with, and I was like, whew, it was exciting. It really was. It was good.
It was brilliant.
Didn't you just feel like you walked into a room of like, these are all my new friends?
Yes. Yeah. It was lovely. I felt very, really validated as well,
Yeah.
We had so much in common.
And I agree with you too on the whole solutioning. And it's interesting because I agree it was very solution focused and very, hey, here's how I've dealt with this problem. Please use this template.
Yeah.
And so I think it was a lot about solutioning, but also genuinely wanting to help each other. And I agree with you. That's the RM mindset.
Absolutely.
Because I know we've talked about this. It's a hard job.
It's a tough gig. And, everybody's in the trenches together, but you build that lovely camaraderie. And yeah, you could see that yesterday in action. It was beautiful.
I totally agree. I am curious. So I have a friend who will remain nameless, but it was years and years ago. And she finally admitted to me that she had absolutely no idea what my job was. And she's like, what do you do? And I explained the whole thing to her. And it was, I don't know, it kind of took me like 15 minutes to explain it because it is a little bit hard to explain. And so I go into this conversation with her and I tell her, I'm like, well, this, and then, sometimes they get mad at you and then this happens. And I was like, yeah, so, that's my job. And she's like, that sounds terrible. She's like, why would anybody want to do that? So why do you like it?
I think it's, it is, I enjoy troubleshooting. I like solving problems. I get a kick out of that. And yeah, sometimes it's hard, but it's rewarding too. So, you get out what you put in, I think.
I agree. I always say that the challenging part is what makes it also rewarding because it's a hard thing. And then when you fix it, when you solve it, it's like this dopamine hit of like utilization went up a point.
Exactly.
Yay. And then you can kind of, take it from there. Apart from the excitement of actually the specific things and kind of those tactical and even kind of the bigger, big wins from an overall strategic perspective, you have seen RM evolve a lot over your years of experience within the organizations that you've been a part of. What feels right now most exciting about where RM is heading?
Well, I think, to be honest, from a sort of external market perspective, companies are under extreme pressure on the top and bottom line at the moment.
Yes.
Which I think actually elevates, to quote a famous phrase from yesterday, this function. And there's a huge opportunity for resource management. So resource leaders have an opportunity to really step in and meet those leaders in the moment and really provide the strategic advice and bottom line impact that they're there to do. Couple that with AI and you've got the perfect sort of storm, if you like, but opportunity. So I think people should be stepping into that with a lot of excitement.
Spoken like a true resource manager. I think the resource management mindset, like you were talking about, is very much one of, oh, this is chaos, but it's exciting.
Exactly.
Whereas I believe other people,
normal people,
let's just say it, they don't necessarily feel that way. But that goes back to what you were saying. It's such a resource management-y thing to come with a solution.
Exactly.
Or to come with solutions that might work. And it's almost this exciting thing of maybe this will work, maybe it won't. Let's find out.
Let's have a go.
Let's try to figure that out. So I agree with you. I think that's really, really exciting. When you think about the resource management community and profession right now, what feels different than when you first started?
What feels different? I think what feels different is, well, first and foremost, we're living through the digital revolution, which is something very exciting and cool, especially if you like technology, which I do. And I think back to when I started sort of 18 years ago in resource management at PwC, and I'm not joking, it was a very analog kind of situation. I had a piece of paper at the side of my desk, and the graduates who I used to have responsibility for, from a sort of scheduling perspective, used to come and sign in at my desk every day to tell me that they had capacity.
Stop it.
It was quite analog, although we did have a system that we used. But fast forward to today, and we just talked about AI briefly, and it's going to keep coming back in this interview. But I think the optimizers are about to become optimized, and that's how I'm seeing this. And I'm excited about that for the resource management community. Our job is going to just become supercharged, and the impact that we can make will be supercharged and enabled by AI. So that's, I think, a bit of a contrasting look at where I've been and what I think the future holds for this community.
Yeah, we've come a long way since the days of the signing in.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I didn't do that, but I did have, and honestly, it wasn't that long ago. So it just goes to show the evolution that's happened even just in the last couple of years, really. But I very much had Post-it notes with people's names on them on a wall. And it was kind of like, and then a partner would come in and it was like, I want this one. I'm like, nope. Like, you gotta.
That's brilliant.
And just, but it worked. That's what we had. And I don't know, it was kind of fun, to be honest with you, too.
It was a very early scheduling system.
Yes.
A very early day schedule.
Yes, exactly. It's how we built the basics. So you started your career at PwC, and then you went on to hold various leadership positions at Analysis Mason, BAE Systems, and KPMG before becoming the global head of resource management at APCO Worldwide, and most recently now the managing director of Trilligent. That's a lot. How did that journey happen? Tell me everything.
Yeah, that's a really hard. It's a really hard question to answer. And when I, think about this, I'm thinking, did I have a plan? I kind of had some core principles when I started out in my career, which was never stand still, like keep on moving, keep on learning, and just take everything you've learned to the next one. Never go and do the same thing in another company. Like, you got to do something different. Mm-hmm. So my core principles are really just, focus on adding value and implementing change. I wanted to become, I think, sort of relatively early on in my resource management career, I wanted to become known as somebody who could implement resource management, implement that change. And I think then I wanted to sort of build on that, and eventually one leadership role morphed into another. And
so Laura, that's really interesting. Well, it's really interesting. Full stop. But one of the things that you said that was really interesting is you used the words, I wanted to become known for. I love that. I love everything about that. We talked about this a little bit at Elevate with the networking and your brand. Was that an intentional, I want to become known for this?
I think probably not immediately, but I think so at PwC, this is the place where I really learned best practice resource management in a very well-oiled machine, an organization who's done this for years. But I thought, you know what, there's probably organizations out there who need this and don't have it yet. And I think there was a moment probably shortly after PwC where I thought, maybe this is something I could do as a thing and become a resource management change maker of some description. And so, that's kind of, I guess, what led me to where I am today eventually.
So it sparked that at that time for you.
Yeah, exactly. But
would you have thought at that time, thinking back to that person with the people signing in, that you would be, if you looked into your, crystal ball and you saw yourself here at this point in this C-suite leadership position, is that what you were? Would that have surprised you? Was that?
Yes and no.
That's exactly what I was expecting.
Yeah, I mean, I think always would have the aspiration to do something like that. I think I've always been very driven. Did I think I could really achieve it? Not sure. But gonna have a good go at it. So, and that's kind of just who I am, When I
got the chills. I like that.
Yeah, when I'm, I'm kind of all in person, and so I don't do things by halves. I go for it, and why not? Why shouldn't I? Let's go.
Oh, I love that. And you do, well, probably, I would say, be successful in any true leadership role, but generally speaking, in the resource management space, for sure, you do have to have that stamina.
Yeah.
And
resilience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tenacity, I think. Curious mind.
Well, because it's like whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I say they, I just mean the whole thing. It's not, sometimes it's people, sometimes it's the process, sometimes even when you're kind of the one on the ground doing the staffing, you put this whole thing together and one little thing happens and the whole thing that you've worked on all day. And if you're the type of person that's going to just be horrified by that, then you're going to be really depressed all the time in this role.
I agree, yeah. It's not for the faint-hearted.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a thankless task, and we heard a bit about that yesterday. But that doesn't matter. As long as you know you're doing a good job, then that's all that matters.
I agree. I really do. And let's go back to the whole implementer, change maker. That's really interesting because you had that interest, you recognized that in yourself, and then you went and did it.
Yeah.
So you've actually built resource management from the ground up, and you've done it more than once, and you've done it a couple different places.
Yeah.
So when you walk into that role, you go into a new organization and you know that you're going to build this, where do you begin? What do you focus on first?
Yeah. So to be honest, I think the first thing I like to focus on is the outcome that's, that people are trying to achieve, the leaders of the business. Once we've got that kind of, clear in our minds, does everybody else in that leadership team also believe in that outcome? Mm-hmm. Do they want the same outcome? Because, it can be very tricky when everybody has a different idea of what it is that needs to be done. So that for me is an essential part of going in and setting expectations, really.
Laura, I've heard you describe resource management as the connective tissue between client work and employee experience. First of all, I love that. How did that view develop over the course of your career?
Yeah, this is a great question. I would really get a kick out of making sure that I would align the right opportunity to the right person, make sure that I'm meeting their needs and helping them to shape their careers. And I think, it's really rewarding when I look back at my own career, but also my own network's careers. And I think about the little part that I played in helping to shape the direction of their careers. I find that really fascinating to look at my LinkedIn and go, oh, wow, so many of the people I used to work with are now CFOs of big companies here in the UK, or they're, senior positions in private equity or whatever. And I'm like, wow, that's really cool. I helped to play a small part in making that happen for them. And that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Oh, I love that. And it's so true. And I'm very active on LinkedIn, so that resonates with me. But I love what you just said, because truthfully, I've never thought about it that way. And many of the people that I'm connected with there are people that I worked with and resource managed, at some point. And I have absolutely had the thought of, wow, look at that. That's so great for them. But I have never had the thought of, wow, I did help with some of that, right?
Yeah,
I did align that person to something, and I love that. And that's going to make me feel really good. So I think anyone who's listening, who's a resource manager, go through your LinkedIn and look at that, because it's
your work.
It's actually really cool. And, it reminds me, one of the first things that I learned really very early on, it was like very soon after I joined, I was at EY in my resource management role. I was as junior as you could be. And I was kind of going through just learning my population, just, kind of understanding, putting faces to names and trying to figure out, what they worked on. And one of the women at the time who was helping to train me, she had said, look, she was explaining, I knew nothing. I had not ever worked in an accounting firm before. So she's explaining to me the different levels and how long they usually spend in each level and this and this. And I said, oh, okay, so these are the more junior people. These more senior people I'm trying to figure this out. I'm like, they're in charge. Mm-hmm. And she goes, yeah. She's like, but here's the thing. You're working in an environment right now where there is a very methodical and specific promotion cycle and culture.
Yeah.
And she's like, so these people that are pretty junior, they're going to be managers. They're going to be senior managers. Mm-hmm. And one day, some of them are going to be partners.
Yeah.
And they're going to remember.
Yeah.
They're going to remember how you treated them. And I was like,
oh, so right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're going to be running this place one day.
They're going to be running this place. And I love that in the context of what you just described, right? Because I have had that experience where I just spoke to someone the other day who is now a really senior guy. He leads an entire region at a management consulting firm. And he was like the manager and I was the resource manager. And he was like a first year manager even. And, we kind of worked together. And anyway, we recently got connected again and we were chatting, and it's like, I'm doing whatever I'm doing and he's doing that. Yeah. And I'm like, what is happening in this world? Yeah. Like, it's cool though.
It is cool.
It's in a really good way. And I love that. When you think about that and you think about having implemented these changes, having actually built processes, which I love about the work that you've done, are there any moments that really stick out in your mind where you were like, oh yeah, that was a win, or where you saw it finally click? Someone was like, oh yeah, I actually do need this, or this is helpful.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, my favorite moment generally is when I unveil the forecast for the first time, when it's kind of in its best shape.
Yes.
When they've just never had that before. They're like, wow.
Yes.
And I say, yeah, you wanted a crystal ball. Here it is, And that usually is the moment they go, wow, okay, this is worth it. And then from that point on, that becomes a daily feature of discussions, and it's used to make all sorts of useful decisions about hiring or skills shortages, all those things that we talked about yesterday. So that's usually a great moment that I look forward to.
So Laura, you have worked in all of these different organizations.
Yeah.
You go in, you set up resource management processes. At what point did you decide that you knew how to do that?
That's a really good question. I think probably after Deloitte, which followed shortly after PwC, where I had a bit of a turnaround opportunity. They'd been through, I think, a handful of different resource managers who'd been unsuccessful, I think, in bringing everybody along with everything that needed to be done. And I came in and said, right, well, I know how to get this ship shape.
Yeah.
And I managed to basically turn that around, as I say, and suddenly everybody's singing from the same hymn sheet. Everybody's working together. They're telling me what's going on. We've got a pipeline. We've got a forecast. We've got everything, everything you need to be able to make those smart decisions. I think that was the moment where I thought, I think I can do this. That was like a department within Deloitte. And it was very different to PwC, which was the audit stuff. Mm-hmm. I know you've spent time in audit as well, but I then moved to the advisory side, which, totally different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
And that was a really great little opportunity for me. And it was very easy for me to see the change that I'd made. And I'm definitely repeating myself now, but that's the moment when I thought, I can do this on a bigger scale, I think.
That's a huge moment because it certainly defined the rest of your career. You spent the rest of your career doing that and doing it very well and then getting an opportunity to do it again.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So we've both had experience within the Big Four accounting,
Yes.
CPA advisory type of firm. I went from advisory to audit. You went from audit to advisory.
Yeah.
What was that like going from that direction?
Yeah, it was totally different, as I'm sure you experienced as well, but in reverse. So I went from a world of structure and busy seasons and all of that stuff that you have in audit to kind of just chaos, really. Just projects coming in completely unforeseen.
Yeah.
And having to react. So you've gone from being super, super planned to super reactive. And so being able to get everybody in order and get a handle on who's doing what and when and for who just really helped us bring order to the chaos, I think. Mm-hmm. And I found that really fun. And then you soon settle into that kind of mode, that advisory mode. And every job I've had since has been advisory mode.
Yeah.
And then it got a bit more crazy when I went to KPMG and deals, which was like that times 100.
So tell me about that job.
Yeah.
The KPMG one.
So I spent five and a half years at KPMG, and I spent my first year in the corporate finance team helping them figure out resource management, which they had historically avoided doing.
I wonder why.
Yeah. So I managed to get them to play ball and we got some, useful progress made there in terms of making sure that we didn't necessarily want to track utilization, but we ended up tracking productive utilization. Because
productive utilization?
Yeah, so not just focusing purely on billable hours, but looking at the whole picture, because that was driven really by the pricing structure that they used to have in M&A. Lots of success fee-based work. And so the risk-reward thing, it meant that actually people would often spend all-nighters. I was going to say throw the kitchen sink at the work, the project to get it done. By that, I mean, everyone's just all hands to the pump. And am I just coming up with all these funny little phrases?
It's good. We like it.
You know these ones. But like the pricing model that they used just didn't really work to just look at billable utilization. It just wasn't an effective metric for them. It didn't really mean anything. So we did that. And then I had an opportunity to be the head of people for the private equity team, which was a new opportunity that came up. And I said, you know what? That looks like a great way to bring all of my resource management experience together, but also add a bit of a finance element and a bit more of an HR element to it. And I ended up doing that for 3 years, which was really great. Also, a really interesting group of people who, have lots of big egos, very fast-paced environment, and they needed a little bit of, oh God, I'm not going to say they needed mothering. I'm not going to say that. What did they need? Let's think about this for a second.
TLC.
They needed, I think what they needed was someone to try and bring them together and help show them how to work more as a team.
Yeah.
And I had like an engagement role, and I had to figure out the remuneration and all that stuff. I was in charge of the workforce planning, recruitment. I did kind of everything, but that was really fun because I hadn't done some of those elements before. But also I had a little bit of a resource management oversight as well. So that was great. And then that led me to another opportunity to be the chief of staff to the head of deal advisory, which was also great. And I look at that experience really fondly. And I think that was the moment where I decided that this slightly more senior leadership thing could be for me. It's kind of validating. Watching these great, very experienced folks, just understanding how their minds work as it relates to the business of the business, but how do they, engage and motivate their teams. And I look at that as my leadership apprenticeship. And that was when I went to APCO after that. Amazing.
I love the way you were able to weave what you've done into another opportunity. It goes back to exactly what you said earlier. Don't leave to go do the same exact thing.
Yeah.
And you know what? I will say some people do that, and that's great. It's not what you did, and you were able to find this other, career path. I think it's really, really inspiring. It's inspiring to me. I know it's inspiring to anyone who's listening who finds themselves in that resource management role and is sitting there thinking, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
What is this career path? Is there a career path? And so seeing someone like you being able to really effectively do that and now be in a senior leadership role is super cool. You said something else that was really interesting, which was, I want to call it out, and you kind of said it, you squeezed it in there, the idea of the business of the business.
Yeah.
I used to hear that a lot, and I haven't heard that in a really long time related to the operational mentality of probably any organization.
Yeah.
But can we talk about that for just a minute as it relates to resource management? Because I don't think that's something we talk about enough. When we say the business of the business, what is that?
I mean, first and foremost, you got to know what your company's selling and to who,
right?
And what that really means, right? Pricing, structures, recovery rates, like budgeting effectively, making sure all this stuff drops down to the bottom line. And it's business of the business.
It's catchy.
It is. But how? Yeah, it's a good question.
It's catchy, and it's also, to your point, and this is actually something that does come up a lot. People will ask, well, how do I become strategic? We don't want to be tactical. We want to be strategic. We want to have a seat at the table, this and this and this. And at the end of the day, how are you going to do any of those things if you don't understand what you just said? If you don't understand what the business is, who their clients are, how could you possibly be successful in supporting them?
Yeah, agreed.
So I love that you called that out, because it is a really, I would struggle to think of one resource management leader who has actually been very successful that hasn't understood that.
Yeah, the two have to go together.
They have
if you're going to become a strategic resource management leader, yeah.
How do you see that mentality when you bring that into what you're doing today and you think about, look, you had your start in resource management, you clearly are doing something much broader now. how much of that do you attribute to, let's say, the people you worked with versus the organizations that you were with versus the fact that you were a resource manager? Is it all mixed together?
It has set me up very nicely.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, it's worked out well.
But there was a moment where I think I thought, getting your head around the business of the business, the metrics, the numbers, really understanding the art and the science there. I think at that point I thought this could all come together quite nicely as a chief operating officer role. And I don't know if I'm getting away from your question here, but
go ahead.
That was the reason why I was really excited when my boss, gave me the opportunity to set Trilligent up in the first place. And so I became the chief operating officer of that and helped to establish the business and scale the business. And that for me was like the ultimate culmination of all of that stuff that, we just talked about. I'm very lucky to be in that position. And I'm now the MD of that business and I have P&L responsibilities and I'm getting extra gray hairs as a result, but it's all good.
But this is super cool. I mean, this is the dream, truthfully. There are so many people, I know so many people are listening. I know so many people personally that wonder, and you're doing it. You're doing it. Even going back to what you said earlier, that chief of staff role, tell us about that. It just opened and you applied? Someone told you about it? Did they create the role? How did you end up moving into that particular role?
Yeah, that's basically that role would come up every sort of 2 years or 18 months, on a cycle. Because it would always be a secondment opportunity. I see. And it would usually be an opportunity for somebody who's client facing.
Right.
Yeah. And again, I was like, no, I'm going to throw my hat into this.
Love it.
And it was the same with the other role before that. That was always open to client facing people only. And I said, well, I think
which role?
The private,
people one.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at you.
Yeah. Okay. So I was like, I want to challenge that idea and I can do that. So yeah, that role came up, the chief of staff role, and I interviewed, got the job.
Amazing.
And for me, it was an interesting one because, the leader of that business was particularly well known, and it was a really exciting opportunity to work for them, and also challenge in many ways because, they had certain ways of wanting to do things, and I needed to make sure that I could keep up.
Yeah.
And keep ahead, to be honest.
Yes. So we talked about Elevate. One of the I thought the very good question that was asked was, what do I do when I feel like I just don't have a seat at the table? And someone, it was Kelly Waters, had said, well, you build a chair.
Yeah.
And everyone laughed, it's this cute thing and it's so, so good. And I still think people are like, yeah, but how? So I'm just going to stop you right there and say exactly what hopefully you just listened to what Laura just said, because that's how you build the chair. You saw that it was technically a role, I guess, that had only traditionally really been filled on the client server side. And that didn't stop you.
Yeah, exactly.
Why? Were you scared? What is it that made you say, you know what, I'm going for it?
To be honest, it was kind of a challenge because, I think people had taken that role historically and been burned by it. And for me, that's like, come on then.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
Yep.
So that was extra motivation, I think. I thought, I can do that. I don't know what else to say. It's
amazing.
Got to have a go. And I thought, well, this will add another useful string to my bow. I'll definitely learn a lot. I'm going to work really hard, but it'll be worth it. And it was.
And you took all of that and fast forward to today, you said you're managing your own P&L.
Yeah.
That is super different than what you'd been doing before.
Yeah.
And is that an opportunity is that what you were hoping for? You wanted to take that on at some point?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I guess, was always going to be not the end point because I'm not done yet, but it was going to be one of the things I needed to, be doing at some point to take that next step.
Right.
And that in itself has given me a deeper level of commercial understanding and awareness. And, we were talking with the private equity chap yesterday, and, he's talking about gross margin and EBITDA and these are all the things that I'm also obsessed about.
Right.
And I'm trying to make sure that all of my metrics are in the place that they need to be.
Yeah.
And it's hard, but it's also really, really rewarding. And I have a great team of people and I love working with them. I've also been doing some things that are outside of my comfort zone, which is another one of my core principles, I think, which is like never be comfortable because no one progressed in life just being comfortable. And so, I've pushed myself. So just talking about going outside of my comfort zone, one of the first things I had to do in Trilligent was actually help define what our go-to-market plan should be. And this is not something I'd ever done before, obviously. Right. And at the time I was also studying like a mini MBA. And so that helped me put my head in the mind of a startup founder, which was the whole idea. And like,
right.
You need to think like a startup founder because that's kind of how it is. And we work a lot with technology companies at the cutting edge of innovation. And it's like super interesting working with companies in blockchain and AI and robotics and data centers, all this stuff that we're all hearing more and more about these days. Well, who'd have thought I'd help put a go-to-market plan together?
That's so cool.
It was really cool, and we've got a great little content marketing strategy going on, and the team are all playing their part in delivering that. And it's just lovely to see it coming all together.
And I'm not sure if you necessarily see it this way because it's you, but I have to tell you, it really is so inspiring. It really is. The idea, in a lot of ways, and part of this is the story people are telling themselves as resource managers, but quite frankly, probably in many operational roles in a firm like a big public accounting firm or a big professional services firm, is it's hard sometimes in your mind to say front office, back office, revenue generating, not revenue generating.
Yeah.
Yes, we all add value, but in different ways. And there's this thing about that. And in some ways it's true because it's just a fact of the matter. And in other ways, you're starting to add in all this other stuff that doesn't need to be part of it. And so it really is so exciting to see someone who came from that world now operating in the one that you're in. I mean, it's a really big deal, and it doesn't happen very often. So I think it's huge when you are now in this role. This is who you are. I wonder, does it make you reflect at all on the resource management process now that you're like, well, no, I'm selling business. Like, I don't have time for your schedule. And I'm just kidding. Hopefully not.
Of course, because in parallel, I'm still head of resource management at APCO. And what's really exciting about that is, so I'm still very much in touch with my resource management self, to answer your question. And we're looking at ways to enhance the function and the value of the function. And we're using AI. We're sort of starting to develop ways to, like I said earlier, optimize the optimizers. And I'm really excited about what we can do with that. I think so much of the admin-y stuff that the team spends their time on at the moment is going to go away. And that's actually probably a relief for many people. Much of it will become self-serve, and all the cool stuff that we like doing, which we never have time to do,
right,
is what's left. And that's where the real business partnering and, the value creation, that's where it really starts. And when I think about resource management, and I think most people sort of associate utilization, resource management, they all go together. I try and think of resource managers as value creators rather than just utilization drivers, because there are so many other things that we can affect, which drop to the bottom line.
Switching gears a little bit to technology, you have supported everything from ERP integrations to designing bespoke RM tools. What is one lesson that you've learned about making the right choice when it comes to tech that truly enables?
Yeah. I think the biggest lesson is, and it's a really simple one, but you need a really smart user interface that feels intuitive to the users, that doesn't take too long to load, that you can see everything you need to see in one place. And if you don't do that, the chances are you're going to lose people very quickly. And if you've got your stakeholders engaging with that system and that workflow, that you're relying on them to play their part, it becomes very difficult to get them back once they've gone in there and gone, do you know what? No, I'm not doing that again. I think one of the other essential parts of that is having a really strong compliance culture as it relates to data integrity. We talked a little bit about this at the event yesterday and how important it is to have good, clean, reliable data, because, AI is only going to be as useful as the data that it's eating up.
Right.
And when it eats up rubbish, less good stuff comes out the other end.
Less good. I like that. Nice way of putting it.
I tried. Ultimately what we don't want to be doing is making bad decisions faster because we've got bad data in the system. And I think this is a fundamental part of the prep work that has to happen before you go ahead and either build or buy a system that you're going to use to enhance whatever it is you're trying to enhance. And it's hard though, because I think everybody plays a part in data quality, and there's like a supply chain of touch points or whatever you want to call them, where so many different people can affect the data. If the governance isn't right around those processes, it can all go wrong very, very quickly.
Yes.
And at scale.
Yes. In a bad way.
Yeah. And so this, I think, I think for many organizations, this is going to be one of the biggest challenges that they're going to face right now if they want to optimize AI. And the companies who fail to do that are probably going to get left behind.
Yes. It's a great point. I really, really strongly agree on the governance piece. It almost invalidates the entire effort when that's not put out there as I would go as far as to say mandate.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It has to happen that way to make it work. So helpful. Couple of just two questions before we wrap up. I'd love to know, when you look back at your career, is there a specific pivotal moment that makes you think, that just changed everything?
I think nearly 6 years ago, so it would be 6 years in April, when I was offered my role at APCO. That for me is a game changer, because there's been two amazing opportunities that have come out of working for APCO. And I love working for them. This is hopefully a good advert for them. But they have this really great culture of sort of build your own adventure. It's very entrepreneurial kind of environment. And people can really, take advantage of that and thrive. And but some people don't necessarily want to do that, and they're happy doing that, and that's fine. But for me, this role that I'm currently in, these roles, I should say, these are a game changer for me.
Yeah. It makes complete sense, and it's very exciting.
Yeah.
All right, last question. If you could go back in time and share one piece of advice with your younger self, what would it be?
Yeah, I think I'd probably say be bold. I think, my much younger self may have hesitated a little bit when I perhaps wanted to say something and thought about it, but perhaps didn't say it. But you've got to be bold. Don't be afraid to raise your head above the parapet, challenge the status quo. Always do the right thing by people, treat others as you wish to be treated yourself. And I think you can't go too wrong with that.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good advice for anyone. It really is. And with that, we will wrap up our conversation, Laura. It's been so great having you. This has been just such a great discussion. And like I said at the beginning, we're best friends now. So if you enjoyed this episode, like and subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. Thank you so much for tuning in, and see you next time on Resource Revolution.